In episode number 441 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover the first Godzilla Vs Kong trailer.
We also have the rumored Harry Potter HBO Max series.
And our comic book highlight this week, as chosen by you, we have The Witcher Fading Memories number 3.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to the award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and so much more. I am your Emperor Pal Kelli.
And I am writer Daniel.
Like writer or writer?
Writing all this good news, R-I-D-E-R. Great news week.
It is. A lot of really great stuff coming our way. The way we format the show is first we're going to go over, like we said, the news, covering all those things we just talked about. We have our Patreon shoutouts, which are thank yous to everyone who makes the show possible. We have our comic book highlight, again, The Witcher as chosen by you. And we rounded out with a Brocat block, which is what happened with Daniel and I this week.
Let's start things off with the Jeppies as the family business continues. Josh Jeppy has been named Chief Creative Officer of Jeppy Family Enterprises, the company best known as the owner of Diamond Comic Distributors and Alliance Games. Those are distributors that send these books and all the great things that you love straight to your local comic book shop.
We do have a quote here from President, Chairman, and CEO Steve Jeppy, who said, quote, "Josh is an incredibly talented with a passion for creative technology that makes him the perfect leader as we look to ignite innovation across the enterprise." End quote.
He announced this at his daughter's wedding, I'm assuming? Or
after he stepped out to deal with some business on the day of his daughter's wedding.
I do follow Josh on Instagram, and he does post a lot of mainly collectible books, Silver Age, first Spider-Mans. He has his hand in being able to obtain these very, very high-end comic books. And I know on the Bleeding Cool section, people were saying, okay, great. So what experience does he have other than being a family member of the Jeppy industry? And I'm like, I guess so, but I just hope that Steve is able to pass down, how to ship these books out from the docks and how to protect your merchandise. In the middle of this war on top of that, and he must have needed another soldier up there.
Well, the way the conversation went is, Joshy, a lot of people are looking my way. You need to take over the company and get the heat off my back. I'll run this side of the family business, and you handle the Archies and the Batmans.
That's a risky move for Mr. Jeppy. They could expose a weakness there. I don't know.
Maybe not. Steve's got it all planned out. He's just putting Josh there in face, but it's really Steve still doing the stuff.
Yeah, that's a better explanation. I love that Diamond is still, honestly, I do love that they're still in operation and that we're still able to get these books and that they're still the main distributor, because Lunar, which is DC's chosen distributor, has not been doing great. And I'll go into that more in the Brocat block, but I'm rooting for Diamond distributors again. And I do wish Josh the best of luck, and I hope he can continue the family business moving forward.
Listen, you're just rooting for them because we've created this Steve persona where he's only shipping comic books from the docks. Clearly, that giant box was not filled with anything else.
It's a great reason, though. I love it.
You start getting your shipments. You're like, why are there 2 layers of tape on every box?
Well, sometimes the boxes do come back retaped.
Yeah, they 100% had drugs in them.
Well, I don't know if I told you yet, but they now have bag stuffing in there, or box stuffing. So there's no longer just empty space anymore. They actually put in wrapping.
After they take out the drugs.
That makes sense. All right. So that helps clean up. Like, there was nothing ever in there. See?
It's always been filled.
It's always been filled.
With this stuffing.
Why do you need filling at the docks, though? Don't ask questions. Jimmy, take care of him.
Jimmy, give him the Silver Age comic and send him on his way.
And this week, we also have some comic book news. According to Bleeding Cool, Brian Michael Bendis is no longer exclusive to DC Comics.
He can write work for hire with any publisher, but will no longer be receiving the high page rates for his multi-year contract with DC.
there was a rumor that DC had looked at what he was producing and the sales that followed, and they weren't up to par. They weren't
They're
at the
not.
expectation that they were looking for when he was back in his years of Ultimate Spider-Man at Marvel Comics. And even right before the transition, his books weren't moving like they used to. I think DC saw an opportunity to get a big name writer, had Bendis move on over, and he does have some pretty good ideas over the last many years that he's worked at Marvel, and he has created the newer Young Justice characters, which will probably have a future later on, but as of the moment, his books are not moving, and he is not pulling his weight, I'm assuming, for the contract, and that's why they kind of let him go from that exclusivity.
We talked about it back when he first started writing, how we weren't really, in love with his stories. His writing style was a little choppy. There was a lot of dialogue. It felt kind of out of character for some of these characters that he was writing. And so I can definitely see why they've gotten to this point. I'd be interested to see if there's something in his contract that kind of said, hey, if after a certain period of time you're not pulling your weight, you're not meeting the numbers, specific numbers that we're expecting, yeah, this is what's going to happen, and kind of pulled away because of that.
I remember my biggest issue with this move being that they kicked off Peter J. Tomasi and Pat Gleason from the Superman book, and that to me was a huge blow for the character, because I feel like they really were doing something great with the Superman books. And Peter J., anything you put him on, it's going to be amazing. And unfortunately, with Bendis going on, and I did give Bendis a try with a couple of his first issues, and they weren't for us, which made me miss Gleason and Tomasi's Superman even more. So I think that so far has been the biggest casualty out of all of this, and I hope that's not what led to Gleason moving on over from DC to Marvel Comics. But it also seems like DC and AT&T are doing the Marvel model and bringing in up and coming talent and not renewing the modern comic book veterans that are instead going to Image Comics. They're doing their own creator work, and you can see it on Twitter when people say things like Yannick Paquette just got didn't get renewed from his contract, and that's one of the longtime DC people. I think they're trying to save money on the comics, and unfortunately, I think the books are going to suffer for that, and we will continue to see the story and the artwork kind of suffer until these up-and-coming writers and artists come into their own and start to, fire on all cylinders.
Yeah, I feel like it's a phase, right? Because right now they're saying, hey, we've had all this great success. Maybe we can achieve that same success if we spend a little less money, and who knows who we can discover, right? Pulling them in here and the fans that they're going to bring from other places. So I see it. I get it. Am I happy about it? No, because exactly like we've always talked about, the stories suffer a little bit until you get to that point where they really find their footing.
And I hope we do get that soon. I hope we do get the next Scott Snyder or the next Bendis or the next Tomasi, but time will tell. And I do wish Bendis and the rest of his readers the best of luck wherever he ends up. I'm sure he's still going to do some more DC work, but I wouldn't be shocked if he were to either go back to Marvel or start doing some more creator-owned stuff.
But switching on over to comics on the big screen, Sony Pictures has delayed Morbius from October 2021 to January 2022.
This one does make me sad, since I am looking forward to Morbius. Anything that Sony and Fox has been doing with the Marvel characters, I have for the most part enjoyed, and Morbius does take place in that same, from what I remember, like the Venom universe, and it's that cast of characters that Sony was going to use and bring up and have them have their own franchises, plus Jared Leto in the lead. That alone tells you you're at least going to get strong talent behind it, just like we did with Tom Hardy and Venom. So whatever the delay may be, I'm sure it's about theatrical box office, trying to get as many tickets as possible. That's fine. January is generally, from what I know, a slower period for theaters, and that's not really where you want to put your blockbuster films, but they got to release it at some point. I think October would have been a great month for it, but it is what it is. I will enjoy it whenever it does come out, and I think we will make that effort to go to theaters in January 2022.
I feel like once a month now I think of this movie and I'm like, where is that? So now I know it's just another year away, which definitely is unfortunate, but I'm sure the way that looking at it is you get into January, you're kind of past that flu season. If we're going to get another resurgence of sickness, whatever, it's going to be in that kind of September-y month. And so they're probably looking at it that way. Let's push it back a year. Hopefully the vaccine is effective and everything's a little bit better, and people will be rushing at that point to go out into the movies.
Something that Harry Potter fans have been asking for years now is a television series based on the books or just in the world of Harry Potter. And now, according to Variety, it is in very early development for HBO Max.
There is absolutely no word yet whether it's a retelling of the books or if it takes place during a completely different period of time in the world of Harry Potter.
Warner Brothers and HBO Max said in a statement, quote, "There are no Harry Potter series in development at the studio or on the streaming platform," end quote, though multiple sources have confirmed to Variety that the project is indeed in the very early stages.
But very early stages could be two people standing around talking about it, saying, let's pitch this to HBO Max.
Well, I'm thinking that it got approved in some form. Obviously, there's no casting or anything like that, and I'm guessing we're like 4 to 5 years away from actually seeing this on HBO Max, but I think it's still very exciting, and it is something they need to do, in my opinion. You know, you got the movies that have been releasing, but you can do a lot with the world of Harry Potter. It's still a very ripe franchise that has a fan base that is ready to still consume. Even though the books are done, they want more content. I don't think they care if they redo the books and redo them all, or if they do prequels or sequels to it that take place on TV. That fan base is still very big. I saw Harry Potter all the time at the shop, and they're there to spend.
What would you want to see this TV show be about?
I would not mind seeing a retelling of the books, because they could now take their time and really explore each character and every single book and go as dark as they need to. Especially as you continue throughout the series, you see that it did become darker as the series' readers grew. So did the content of the books. So I think if they have all of that in mind, they know where the characters are. As they were doing the movies, they didn't know how it was all going to end. But now you have the complete picture. I think as a writer, you're probably like salivating, thinking, all right, I can really have this block of 7 books throughout 7 seasons or more, depending on how successful this thing is. And you kind of more or less have control as to where the high beats and low beats are going to be. Obviously, there's the downside of we're familiar with the cast that we had from the movies. They're gonna cast a very young Snape. They're gonna cast someone that's closer to the book's age, of in his 30s. Alan Rickman was 55 when the first movie
and he was so
came
perfect.
out. and they're gonna go. So that's one of the things that I'm like, you're not Snape, but it is what it is. There's gonna be a new generation of kids that are gonna grow up on this, new generation of people that I think will enjoy it. And if they make it TV series, it'll already feel different enough from the movies where I think you can separate yourself from that franchise a little bit.
I would agree. I think they, have, just like you said, that time to go a little bit slower to really tell these stories, because when we were looking up trivia, when we were watching the movies, there were so many things that were left out or changed, or understandable, right? You have a very small period of time to tell this very long story. But then additionally, in every single season, I think there should be an episode that takes place in the past. So let's see Harry's parents. Let's see Snape when he was younger. And of course, that would be in like the 7th season, so that you really get to dive into his past. And you're like, oh my God, that's why he is the way that he is, for all those newer generation, that's coming in and watching it. And really take the time to explore this world and all the different intricacies of these characters. And so we can all see how much of a jerk James Potter is, because I hate him.
People are also pointing out that if they do this series, they could also adapt the play sequel that J.K. Rowling had done. I forgot what it was called, like The Child something.
Oh, yeah. The Curse of the Child. Cursed Child, or something like that.
So they could tack that on to the very end, or some people were saying they should just make that into the TV series. There's a lot of options that they can go with at this point.
I'm excited whenever this comes out. I do hope that it's live action, but even if it's animated, I don't think that's a terrible route to go, just to be a little bit easier, I guess.
There have also been 2 films to date in the prequel spin-off Fantastic Beasts film series, with the third of 5 planned films due out in 2022 currently. do you think that because of all of this Johnny Depp, Amber Heard stuff, that maybe they're exploring moving away from the Fantastic Beasts series, or do you think that's far enough where they're like, we already recast them, not a big deal, and yeah, these movies haven't been as huge as the previous ones, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But
I think it would be more than that versus recasting Johnny Depp. I have not been excited about Fantastic Beasts. We saw the first one and I wasn't blown away, and I didn't really latch on to the characters. You know, we watched all of the Harry Potters many years after we saw Fantastic Beasts, and even though those characters are much younger than the ones that we saw in Fantastic Beasts, I was like, yes, I relate to that one. I really like this character. I want to follow it. I want to see what happens, except for Ron. I don't like Ron still. But regardless, I digress. So I just don't think Fantastic Beasts had that same kind of charm. So I think they're looking at that and saying, okay, well, while some people enjoy these stories and it's still in the same world, that's not really what our audience is looking for. And so I think it's more so that than all the issues with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. But I also think they're looking at this as what a great opportunity it is with the streaming service like HBO Max to take your time and really tell the story and get all those fans on board for a significant period of time.
And we have even more television heading into our streaming services as the world of Kong Skull Island is expanding through Netflix and Legendary Television with an anime series.
Skull Island will follow shipwrecked characters trying to survive on Skull Island.
This is the part that got me deflated on the news. Powerhouse Animation, who did Blood of Zeus, will be working on this Skull Island project. So I'm thinking like an anime, and instead it's that Americanized anime. I don't know how there's this big argument on whether or not it's actually anime, but to me, I'm like, maybe I'll check it out, I guess. And that's the place where you would expand it, right? Just have years of adventures on the island. I get it, but the animation is what really turned me off on this one.
Well, maybe they'll update it. Maybe they'll try different things. I will keep hope and optimism. I fell asleep during Blood of Zeus, so I don't even know. I don't even know what happened. But I think this is, an interesting way. It's the easiest way to dive into this world and say, okay, these people get shipwrecked. What can they do? And it better have some Gilligan's Island stuff thrown in there, because that's all I'm thinking about.
And speaking of King Kong, HBO Max has released the very first trailer to Godzilla Vs Kong.
It's Godzilla.
We do have a statement for Warner Media who said, quote, "The epic clash between the two titans, instigated by unseen forces, is only the beginning of the mystery that lies deep within the core of the earth," end quote.
In the trailer itself, we see those hints of monsters coming from deep underneath the earth, and I thought I remembered Skull Island having some of that plot with the Cubone Marowak-inspired monsters that fought against Kong, so it sounds like there's something bigger in there. They mentioned in the trailer that Godzilla and Kong are the two left to protect the earth, is what they were implying from this underground threat, that throughout the years, that monsters like Godzilla and Kong and then others helped fight against whatever this underground thing was. And you see it in the trailer. I don't know if this is a spoiler alert, I guess, but it's in the trailer. You see him, Mechagodzilla, you see his big ass head destroying a city, and then you see the Mechagodzilla diorama on one of the screens, so I'm assuming that's where they're controlling him. But do you think that there is another monster behind it all, like someone that they fight Mechagodzilla and then there's another monster, or what do you think the plot is really here?
I think you're definitely on the right track. So kind of what they hint at in this trailer is that Godzilla is going on this attacking rampage and nobody knows why, and I feel it's kind of insinuated that he attacks a ship where this little girl is on, that Kong it has some kind of relationship with, feels the need to protect her, and so then that's why Kong is going after Godzilla.
Hell yeah.
But at the end of it all, there's something, and I feel like we've seen it before, where there's some like wave in the air or something that's fucking Godzilla up, and that's why he's going on this attacking spree. So I could definitely see that as coming from this thing underground. Whatever it is messing with Godzilla, and so Godzilla's doing these things. But as a result, obviously, they're going to build Mechagodzilla to try and stop Godzilla, because that's our first thought as humans is let's just build another one. And Mechagodzilla is obviously going to go cuckoo bananas. You see what I did there, Kong? Cuckoo bananas? Okay, cool. And so then they're going to have to team up together to fight Mechagodzilla to destroy him, or maybe even just Godzilla destroys him, or who knows. But then we're going to have this other thing that comes out of the earth that they're going to have to defeat also.
Well, see, that's the bit that's the only thing I understand the Mechagodzilla part where they're trying to get, because Mechagodzilla, they can't take on both with just Mechagodzilla. So they put the two monsters into conflict, and Kong ends up winning. Obviously, he's weakened, though, and that's when they send in Mechagodzilla to finish off Kong, because Kong had since defeated Godzilla, and that's how they defeat the two monsters. But that's the part where I'm like, okay, well, what is the motivation behind building Mechagodzilla? And if there is another monster that is deep on the ground, how are they going to work that into either the same battle of Mechagodzilla, or, after they defeat that, or will all three team up against a destroyer or a Mechaghidorah, or whatever it may be? The movie is only like 2.5 hours long, so I don't, maybe I'm plotting too much of this.
Remember, we complained that there was too many humans and not enough fighting, so it's just all going to be fighting this whole movie.
And then they'll complain.
They complain for both sides.
Yeah.
So, no, I think they built Mechagodzilla as a backup for if Godzilla ever came back. And so they're going to release him not to defeat Kong, but to defeat Godzilla. And if he defeats Kong, cool. That's a win-win for them right there, right? But I definitely think both Godzilla and Kong are going to have to team up to destroy Mechagodzilla. And then this thing's going to come out of the earth, because they're going to be like, shoo, we're done. And then this thing's going to be like, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. And we'll be like, no, we just beat the Elite Four. We don't have enough potions. That's what's going to happen.
I am sad that from what I understand, the Mechaghidorah, or at least the Ghidorah head, if you remember in the post-credit scene of King of the Monsters, the guy says, we'll take it, and they buy that Ghidorah head. After King of the Monsters underperformed at the box office, originally there were two films that were going to come out, Godzilla vs. Kong and then another one. But since then, they have reduced the runtime of Kong vs. Godzilla. And from what I understand, they canceled that sequel movie. So I'm thinking that we're not going to see the resolution of that Mechaghidorah, or the Ghidorah head, that they're instead just going to focus on what would have been, I guess, the final film, and just put it into this one and end the franchise here, especially once again, since King of the Monsters underperformed.
Yeah, unfortunately. And I would have loved to have seen Mechaghidorah. I think he would have been so cool. Not because he's my favorite monster, just because he's cool, right? So that is unfortunate. I still, even though I don't think we'll ever see that resolution, I love the fact that we still had that hint of it. Like, oh, okay, so even when this movie ends, I can think in a few years, this is what's going on in that world. That's wild.
You talked briefly about the little girl that seemed to have connected with Kong. I thought that was an amazing way to bring in, because they set up this trailer like, okay, there's this young girl that Kong connected with, and then you see Godzilla's dorsal fin or whatever, like, boom, see a little girl, and us as the audience are like, no, not that ship, Godzilla, what the fuck are you doing? And then Kong's like, this motherfucker. And I'm like, I think the audience is on Kong's side right now based on this trailer.
I'm not.
You're still like, yeah, kill that little girl.
Yeah, no, I'm not like that. But I'm like, what do they have on this ship that's fucking with you, Godzilla? Is that where the beacon signal's coming from?
I hope they don't kill off the little girl, but obviously for Kong, it is, Godzilla's a threat. He's there to protect the young girl, and eventually, yeah, they'll team up. And I'm like, this is a great motivation for them to start fighting. And supposedly I don't know how true this is, one of the customers was telling me yesterday that they're going to explain why Kong didn't show up when Ghidorah put out that signal for, everyone to basically serve him after the Godzilla was defeated. And I guess they're going to explain it in this one, but I do want to see all those tie-ins into King of the Monsters. I do like that they mentioned in Skull Island that he's still growing, and now he's about the size of Godzilla, and they fight in that neon city, which was kind of interesting. That should make for some really neat visuals when the movie comes out.
I do like that we see kind of these two main actresses too, each on a different monster side. So you have that little girl, and then whoever also feels the need to protect her is like, yeah, Kong's the best. And then you have that girl from the last movie who came back and she's like, yeah, Godzilla's the best. And I'm like, yeah, I'm with you.
Was she in the trailer? I missed her.
Yeah, she was in the trailer.
I completely missed her in that.
She looks like way older, but yeah, she was in the trailer. Unless I dreamt it. I don't know. But she was in the trailer and she was just like, no, there's something going on with Godzilla. Let's figure out what it is. And I'm like, yeah, let's figure out what it is. Oh, you assholes.
Are you rooting at all for Mecha Godzilla like you did with Monster Zero?
No.
Me neither. Like, I don't think anyone really is rooting for
Nobody cares.
Mecha. It's like, fuck you, Mecha Godzilla, you fake ass.
I want him to come out and he's like, rawr, and then Godzilla's just like, poof, and he's gone. That's it.
I hope so.
That's it.
I hope they do another head twist like in the classic movies.
The most anticlimactic. You know who I would root for if the kaiju from Pacific Rim came out?
Yes.
And I'd be like, yes, I'm rooting for you.
Or if Batfleck showed up in a mech suit and he just put an end to both of their fucking nonsense. That would be great. It's all in the same. It's all Warner Brothers. It could happen.
Sure, make it happen.
But we almost didn't cover Godzilla vs. Kong in the trailer because there was a lot of tea behind all of this, a lot of controversy. The movie is set to release on HBO Max and in theaters on March 31st, but with the trailer, they had initially tried to release it on March 26th, which was originally a day after Zack Snyder's Justice League. Warner Brothers, though, has since moved it back to March 31st smartly, and there was a lot of speculation about this. I know with us, the fan base, we were like, so what's going on? Why are Hamada and Toby doing this? And according to Grace Randolph, that it's a lot of them, Hamada and Toby, feeling excluded from Zack Snyder's Justice League.
And they are.
Yeah, rightfully so. And, they feel like if we're not going to be a part of Zack Snyder's Justice League, then we're going to
nobody's going to be a part of it.
Then we're going to pump up the things that we are a part of. And she also said that a big part of that was who gets to claim the subscriptions that are going to come out of this. So they're saying that by them releasing and moving Kong versus Godzilla up into that same date range as Zack Snyder's Justice League, that Toby and Emmerich did this so that Zack can't point to his film and say, look at how many subscribers we got on this service. There is a future for the Snyderverse. So instead, by muddying up those waters and saying, well, no, it was because of Godzilla versus Kong. Look at the streaming numbers here and look at all of this, that was the reasoning for all of it. And it's unfortunate that they are working against the same company, against themselves, all because of egos and hurt feelings.
It feels like such high school, or not even, it's middle school, because they're like, well, I'm not a part of that group, so I'm gonna do my thing because you're leaving me out.
You're gonna hold your own. Well, we're gonna hold our own party over here, and we're gonna put it an hour before yours.
We're gonna start our own club.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. It's that same exact mentality. There is no difference there.
Right, and it's just it just makes no sense. Like, at the end of the day, you're all on the same team. Why would you not want to be successful? Why are you trying to hurt the other person just because? Silly things. Exactly like you said, it's ego and hurt feelings. That's all that it is.
The last I heard was that Zack Snyder's Justice League was going to move to March 18th, so about 2 weeks apart from Godzilla vs. Kong, which would give Zack Snyder's Justice League a good 2-week window to promote and push and sell and do all of it, have its own period before Godzilla vs. Kong releases. And I hope that is what is happening. Grace mentioned that Zack's team cannot get the film out earlier than March 18th because they're still doing the finishing touches on the audio and color correction and everything else. But I think I'm glad that Warner Media and AT&T and Jason Kilar, whoever made the decision, I know we've been on Twitter thanking Jason Kilar and AT&T of thank you for pushing Godzilla vs. Kong to the 31st. This was ridiculous. Like, why did anyone allow it to move to that date? So as soon as that was settled, the rumor is that now, that's why in January there was no promotion for Zack Snyder's Justice League, is because there was still that uncertainty of when is it releasing, but are we going to have Kong versus Godzilla in that date? Does that mean we're going to push Zack Snyder's Justice League back further a few months? And now that that's settled, supposedly starting in February and really starting on January 31st with the big Zack Snyder's Justice League trending event is when we're going to get probably the new trailer and the solid release date. And you bet we are going to cover it right here. But again, we were ready. The whole fan base was ready to boycott Kong versus Godzilla, and I think they were smart to move the date because that would have also hurt their subscriber numbers. There's talks of mass canceling HBO Max subscriptions just to send a message. So they fixed it quick, and thankfully they did.
Well, at the end of the day, too, subscriber numbers are a big thing that you're looking at, but you're also looking at viewer numbers. How many people actually pulled these up to watch it? So even if they had released on the same day, I would have pulled it up and said, okay, well, Zack Snyder had way more viewings because y'all are just going to leave it on repeat when you go into work.
Hell yeah.
Let them know. Let the dog watch Zack Snyder's Justice League.
People have been like, so I can watch this. If it's 4 hours long, I can watch this 3.5 or 4 times in a day. And people are already calculating, like, I can make it to the theater, watch it once, go back home, watch it 2 more times.
Oy.
Last bit of news this week is what's new on Netflix, the February 2021 highlights.
This is not the full list, again, just what pertains to Daniel and myself, what we're excited about, what we think you may be excited about as well. You can find the full list on Google. Just search what's new on Netflix, February 2021.
First one on my list is Beverly Hills Ninja. And the reason I had it on here is either on the VHS of Liar Liar or Dumb and Dumber. I don't remember which one. The trailer always played for Beverly Hills Ninjas. Do you remember, kids, the days when you had trailers before the VHS?
Yes, I do.
Like now, Blu-rays and 4Ks and all that don't have that stuff, but it was always the exact same trailer. And Beverly Hills Ninja, I always thought looked great and looked hilarious, and I finally was able to rent it from Blockbuster shortly after that. And it was a Chris Farley movie. Chris Rock was in it, and I remember liking it just fine. Not enough to like try to get my parents to buy the VHS, but now I kind of want to rewatch it and revisit that old memory and see if it was as kind of good as I remember.
I never even heard of this movie. I didn't know it existed until this moment, and you're telling me it was on VHS. So
Yeah.
Where have I been all these years?
Do you know the plot point at all?
No, I've never heard of it. I'm assuming it's a ninja who lives in Beverly Hills.
It's the Great White Ninja type of thing, but it's Chris Farley, so it's really big and it's a movie where you see a fat person try to do ninja moves and try to be stealthy, but he's really not. But then the guy that he's teaming up with actually believes him on all of this, and that's Chris Rock. He's like, oh yeah, no, you're a master of this, and he believes that he is actually like this kung fu guy, and that's about as far as I remember. So that's why I had this on here, because I do want to rewatch it.
I guess I'll have to watch it too and learn about whatever this is. But next on the list, we have Inception.
Actual cinema now, I think.
Actual movies, yes.
It's a pair of Leonardo DiCaprio movies because we also have one of your favorites, Shutter Island.
I love Shutter Island.
So you can get some amazing Leonardo performances in Shutter Island, directed by the great Martin Scorsese.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite directors.
If you have not, for some reason, seen either of those movies, they are, I would say, watch them at least once before you die. Inception, I hadn't seen in quite a bit, so I'll probably revisit that. I still have to rewatch Tenet. We bought the 4K recently, so I still have to dive into that one. And Shutter Island is one of those where it's like, I know the outcome of it, so that's one reason why I haven't rewatched it, because I kind of would know everything already. But it's one of those movies where you have to go in it not knowing the plot, because the payoff is better if you don't know what happens in the end. Next
on the list, we have The Patriot.
Starring Mel Gibson and Heath Ledger. So this is one that I also hadn't... I saw a ton of trailers for it, but I never got around to watching it. And since over the years, I've heard that it's actually pretty good. So that's one that I'm like, all right, now's the opportunity. I can actually check it out.
We also have The Conjuring, number 1, 2, and no thank you.
Yeah, if you like horror films, check out The Conjuring.
I don't like horror. Why would you even mention? I don't like them. They scare me. I was reading... I had a list come up the other day that's like, spooky stories, don't read at 2 a.m. And I'm like, it's 10 p.m. We're fine. And I got one and I was like, nope. And I was already crying because I was so scared of ghosts. Yep.
Final one on this list is Pele, which is a Netflix original. I'm assuming it's a documentary, and I love my documentaries. I don't care if it's a person or sport or athlete that I don't know anything about. Food. I will watch it, but in this case, it is Pele, one of the famous and best players of all time in any sport, and Netflix is doing a documentary. Sign me the fuck up.
But that does wrap up our What's New on Netflix for February 2021.
Let's head into our thank yous to those of you who make today's show possible, our Patreon shoutouts of the week.
Our first shout out goes out to Corey B on Twitter at Comictropolis.
He tweeted out, quote, Kong does bow to someone. Hashtag Zack Snyder's Justice League, end quote.
It's true. Notice he said Kong, not Godzilla.
Well, because Godzilla bows to Kong and Kong bows to Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's the thing.
No.
I love that part in the trailer too, when he's like, Kong, it's like, Kong, don't shiv. He's like, I don't give a shit who the fuck you are. I'm gonna knock you off this fucking ship. Godzilla just takes it too. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
He's like, oh man, you're so strong.
Godzilla's gonna win. Please calm down.
And I love that he's able to, because people kept saying Godzilla just needs to atomic breath him and Kong needs to get close to him. And it's like, there's answers for that in the trailer. Kong dodging his fucking breath, using the spike axe as a blocker to come down. And oh my God, it's so cool. People have now suddenly, if you look at polls on Twitter, everyone's saying Kong's going to fucking win. It's like, no fucking shit. Have you not seen Kong? He can use tools and be amazing.
Do you not know how trailers work? Because they always make you think somebody's going to win and then they don't win.
If they were smart, the next trailer would be all like Godzilla highlights of him beating up Kong. And then that way people can be like, oh, wait, maybe Godzilla's actually going to win.
He is going to win.
Looking forward to you seeing this.
And you're looking forward to me seeing him win? Yes, that's what I'm looking forward to too. It's going to be great.
Next shout out goes out to Abdul Red Hot G on Twitter at rgadanfar.
He tweeted, quote, I'm loving WandaVision so far. All I've seen on my timeline is people loving it, end quote.
There you go. We don't have Disney Plus. I'm not watching WandaVision. So if you have watched WandaVision though and you want to connect with a fellow broquette, make sure to tweet out to at rgadanfar.
Our next shout out goes out to Manu on Twitter at manunited0710.
Whom without we would not have Zack Snyder's Justice League has done, along with everyone else, but Manu especially has done tons for the movement. So huge thanks, Manu, as well for supporting the podcast. And also out to Jimmy as our final Patreon shout out this month.
Thank you so much, Jimmy, Manu, Abdul Red Hot, and Corey for your Patreon support.
If you too would like your shout out, you can donate to us through patreon.com/thereasonsimebroke. And for as little as $1 a month, you will get your shout out every single month.
Everything that's donated through Patreon goes right back into the show. It is not free for us to do, but definitely helps make this possible. And one thing it also made possible is our app.
It is available on iDevices and on Android. Just search The Reasons I'm Broke. And it's another way to listen to the podcast. We have wallpapers for each episode that are up exclusively on there. Primarily a great discovery for the marketplaces. So that was a thing that was accomplished through Patreon. So huge thanks to all of you for that.
And now with all of our shout outs completed, we can move into our comic book highlight.
As voted on by you, we have The Witcher, Fading Memories number 3 of 4, written by Bartosz Stybor, art by Amid Mir, and colors by Hamidreza Sheikh.
I voted for this one too, so I'm very happy that I got selected.
Is this issue better than the second one, I'm assuming? I know in the second one it was a lot more setup, but in this one it seems like everything's kind of unfolding and he's figured everything out.
Yeah, so in this series, and I think we've reviewed now all 3 issues that have come out. The first one was really, really solid and, kind of gut-wrenching. The second one was really a setup, and then exactly like you said, all the pieces are kind of starting to fit together now in this issue. So it really starts with a low place for The Witcher. And of course, this is a spoiler review. So if you're reading this and don't want to know, just go ahead and skip forward a little bit. But really a low place for him where he's really just trying to help this town. He's sniffing the bullshit and he's trying to figure it out for the sole purpose that he wants to help these people and make sure that they're in an okay place and their kids aren't dying. And of course, he gets found out by the mayor and she's pissed and she's like, listen, I appreciate the little bit that you did, but you're digging too far and we're going to kick you out. And he really gets turned on his ass by this entire town where all he wanted to do was help. And they're so blinded by this mayor that they're just like, nope, you got to get out. We don't trust you. You haven't done anything.
It seems like the town is also working towards maintaining that illusion of safety or
paradise.
Yeah, kind of. They always have what they need, but it does come at a cost, and that's a cost that they're willing to live with, I think, for the most part. I don't know if when the truth comes out, if they're going to, maybe say they're okay with it or not, but it seems like the mayor herself is going, this is worth it. We just need you to clean up the mess from what we have to pay here for all of this.
But of course, even when he's met with opposition, the Witcher is not standing down. He's like, there's still something going on here. And at the end of the day, these people are worth it. So he continues on his journey. He goes and snoops around and finds a doctor who was kind of key in all of this, who is now no longer a doctor, and, really tries to dive into what's going on with this wizard who is essentially creating these monsters that are stealing children.
That morality continues with the Witcher in this series. Even though he's already gotten paid, he can leave. This town is not a problem for him. There's still enough deep down within him, because I'm sure this isn't the first time he's been betrayed or where people have hated him. He's a Witcher. You see it in the comic and in the show. People are naturally apprehensive against him. But in spite of all of that, he still maintains that sense of decency of needing to do good where he needs to. Yes, it's for money, but deep down, he's a good person. So he's going to go out of his way, risk his life to do what's right.
One thing I really enjoyed about this book is we have these writings, right? Somebody is narrating throughout, and you find out that it's the previous doctor of the wizard who's doing this narration, but it appears that the wizard's story, or the things that he's writing, I guess he's a mage, the things that he's writing about the mage are very much in line with the Witcher's history. So it feels like in this last issue especially, we're going to see the parallels between this mage and this Witcher, because at one point he talks about how, the mage kind of gets a high off of helping people, off of being able to do those things. And we see that reflected exactly in the Witcher of, okay, they're throwing things at me. They're telling me they hate me. They're telling me I have to leave, but I'm still going to help them, because at the end of the day, that's where he gets his satisfaction and fulfillment from.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten that parallel out of it. It seems like you're pulling way more from this series than I am.
It's just me being a palpa. That's what I do.
That's what happens when you read a comic, latch onto one that you really enjoy. You just really dive into the story, the characters. You start to kind of notice everything. It might be one of those that I hope it's collected in one of those Dark Horse omnibuses, because I'm sure there will be another miniseries that comes out of this once it wraps up. And it'd be nice to reread this as a whole.
But thank you so much for everyone who voted for this book. Every Wednesday, Daniel does put up a poll of our new comic books that come out, and you are able to contribute and decide what we report on that week.
It's on Twitter at Reasons I'm Broke. You will see the poll underneath the new comic book day. But once again, thank you for choosing that. Let's head into our Broket block, which is what Palpa, Kelli, and I have been doing this week.
So you had mentioned in the very beginning you were going to dive into what's going on with Lunar and how it's frustrating and how Mr. Jeppy just needs to take over the whole business.
He really does. So, yeah, that's something that I've heard is happening to other comic shops as well. But we're doing everything we are supposed to on our end. And I guess when Lunar, which is their new distributor, went from after Diamond and DC parted ways, it went to UCS. There was some growing pains there, but we eventually got into a consistent schedule with them. And then UCS decided, we don't want to carry DC books. So now Lunar is the sole distributor. And when the orders get submitted to them, I guess lines go disappearing on their end. And they're like, oh, no, you didn't order it. And it's like, here's the file. Oh, well, I don't know what happened, but the lines aren't there on when they got uploaded to our thing. And it's really frustrating because they don't have a dedicated customer service to this. They're not, they're like the least involved distributor out there right now. Penguin Press is more involved. Obviously Diamond, that you have your own representative, but with Lunar, it's just kind of like, well, yeah, maybe we got your order, maybe we didn't, but we can't fulfill them, or here you got what you got. And it's a shame because they when we get our books, we get them on time. There hasn't been a delay so far between Lunar and UCS, which is all right, cool, but we'd like to also get the books we ordered. That's kind of the whole thing. And I'd rather get them late, but eventually get them than never get them at all. And that's what happened with us on Strange Adventures number 8. To say the least, there were more books that were lost in the ordering, I guess. Again, that's Lunar's problem. It's not ours, but we were able to salvage the difference on some of these titles with some of the other stores in the company, but company-wide, no one got Strange Adventures number 8. And we're just throwing up our hands. Like, it's like, even when we do what we're supposed to, there's no guarantee that we'll even get anything at all. So it's just frustrating. And it's one of those things that gets me more and more discouraged by, DC's handling of this, because if AT&T or DC really cared about this process, they would come down on Lunar on these issues, but they're not. And I don't think Lunar cares either. So it's more incentive to like, all right, well, why don't we promote indie publishers and other publishers that are willing to work with comic shops, that give them returnability, that still care about those things? And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be like those other comic shops that are like, fuck DC, we're just not going to carry any of them. But instead, we're going to focus our energy on selling books that have comic shops in mind.
So I am definitely under the opinion that Diamond was late because DC was attacking them. They were blowing up warehouses.
Diamond or Lunar?
Diamond.
Okay.
Diamond was late those 2 weeks because DC
gotcha.
was attacking this, the war on distributors, right? And so now we've already talked about how Steve is diving into the internet with this internet war. I think he's deleting those lines.
That's true.
Steve Jeppy going in there. So they're really like, I don't know what happened. And Steve Jeppy's like, he.
He has his guy do it, though. He doesn't really know how to hack. He's like,
he doesn't.
He's behind the monitor, the guy, make sure to get rid of these orders.
The guy has to pull it up, and then Steve has to hit enter to delete it, like with a little kid. Now just hit this button.
And we delete their lines. So be it. Fire away, deletes them.
Which one do you want to delete, Steve? What is this Stranger Things? It sounds strange. Delete it.
So we're suffering, but Steve's like, but my books are on time now, and we're getting them.
With extra packaging that was not drugs.
Do you think he'll propose that DC come back to Diamond?
No, I think they're still fighting it. I think he's still going to be like, we don't need you. And his son is probably like, yeah, Dad, we do. Let's get them back. No, son, you don't understand the business.
On the retailer side, I was just like, when I let my subs know that for all Strange Adventures, and I told them exactly everything because it's all on Lunar. I'm so used to saying Diamond. It's all on Lunar because the blame is on them, and I'll happily put it right on them because I'm not going to take the blame for any, and no comic shop should take the blame for books not being there because it literally isn't anything we could do. It wasn't our fault, and it's Lunar and DC, and if they want to get on Lunar, then so be it. But I think readers should know that this is all the distributors, and it's not your local comic shop not getting the books that you ordered. And that's why I try to be as transparent as possible with, the customers and the readership and the subscribers that are affected by, if it's a regular delay through Diamond, that's not a big deal because they'll eventually send the replacement. Or if they don't, then that's when I put out a request to the other stores. But if it's something huge like this, it's like, here's everything. Like you can see, Lunar did not do their bid, and that's not on us. So put the blame on them, put the blame on DC and AT&T. This is something that they need to get better at. And I hope they do get better at it, but it's just not giving me any confidence at all.
Well, that is unfortunate. Hopefully they continue to work out the kinks.
I hope so. This is what happens maybe when you get a shit ton of accounts from throughout the nation all on one distributor that may or may not have been prepared for it. And that's a positive outlook. I hope that's the problem, but I'm not too sure. And again, I'm going to start focusing on publishers like Boom and IDW and Image Comics and Aftershock and Dark Horse, the ones that are there for comic shops. How about your week? How's it been going?
It's been going pretty well. As far as work goes, I'm spending a lot of time outside my store helping other stores, which is a great development piece, but just kind of a lot to juggle. I did start a reread of my favorite book series, though, and I know when I read it the first time I talked about it, back in April. It's been almost a year since I read it, but the 5th book in the series is coming out in about 2 weeks, which is really exciting. So I was like, you know what? It's been a long time. Let me dive back into this and relive this world again. And I've thought about rereading it for a while, but then at the same time, I was like, damn it, I know what happened, so it's not going to be as impactful. So, do I want to give up that great feeling that I had of how impactful it was? You kind of like just what we talked about with Shutter Island, right? It's that first read through that you're just like, oh man, this is so great because you don't know what's happening. But I'm not really finding that's the case. I'm discovering so many more new things. And even though that first book was grueling, because I'm like, I hate this son of a bitch that she's saying she's in love with, I was able to pick up different things where she'll make a comment to him in like the first 3 chapters of the book. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to happen later, even though he's saying it's not, different things like that. which is really cool. So I'm loving it. I know I'm filling you in on things, and you're like, yeah, blah, blah. This is great, Kelli.
Well, what's the name of the book in case people want to read it or check it out?
Yeah, so the first one is A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's the first one. And then right now there's 4 books in the series. There's about to be a 5th, but she also announced there's going to be like 3 more after that. So it's great. It is a fantasy book. The first one is young adult, I think, and then the last 2 are just a little more mature. But really, really great. The whole story across the 3 books, because the 3 books are kind of the main story. And then the rest of the books she's releasing are going to focus on different characters. So they're a little bit shorter and kind of diving into their stories. But at least the main story is completed, which is great. But it's kind of, the first book is kind of like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And then the other 2 are kind of like a Hades and Persephone, which are 2 of my like favorite stories. Like if you just told me, I'd be like, yeah, sold, done. Like whatever it is, done. So, but really interesting in the way that she tells it and the way that she builds this amazing fantasy world where you're just sucked in, and each book takes like 10 hours to read, and I just don't want to put them down because there's just so much, and I could talk about them all day long. But anyway, fantastic series. If you guys are looking for a fantasy romance, very much recommend. It's by Sarah J. Maas, Maas.
There you go, a glowing recommendation from the Palpa. The last thing I have on my week is I have several new shirt designs on Bay for our TeePublic shop, and then I've got 2 commission designs that are incoming as well. So we've got some cool stuff coming your way, and I'll release them periodically throughout the next half a year or so, but definitely keep an eye out on those. I always like to keep a fresh set of designs up, and we have the older ones up there too on our TeePublic store. You can also find the link at thereasonsimbroke.com, but just keep an eye out for those because I don't know, to me it's just fun to have something available for the Brokehead core, something that I can wear as well that I know is a reference to the show, or like a neat design that represents the Brokehead core or the podcast. So that's something that you need to keep your eye out, because I think it's going to be cool and fun, and I like the design so far, and I can't wait to share them with all of you.
But that does wrap up the show for the week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you just can't get enough from one episode a week, you can reach out to us on Twitter at Reasons I'm Broke, at Kelli. Daniel is very active, always posting something that pertains to the show that we talk about. So you can definitely get on board with the conversation there.
So thank you once again. I've been Writer Daniel.
And I am Emperor Kelli.
And Brokehead Core.
All will be well.
Are there any other monsters you want to see show up in Godzilla vs. Kong?
Ghidorah. You can come back.
Just come back? Do you think we'll get another Mothra with the egg tease in the last movie?
No, I think we may see a nod to Mothra somewhere. Like maybe he's a little larva right now, like crawling around or something. So I think we'll get a nod to him, but I think it's really going to be an original monster from the depths of the earth. Probably maybe even a bigger of those weird Cubone bat things that are flying around, or something similar. But I do think it's going to be an original monster that we're going to see.
I think you're right, because if we saw in King of the Monsters, there were only a few Toho monsters that they had, and the rest were all original designs, and I'm sure a lot of that is, it would have cost them to use each one of those monsters, so they're going to go ahead and create their own, which definitely makes sense. I think you're right, it is probably going to be, because the fan wants to say it's going to be Destroya or someone, but I think that's a Palpa prediction that's going to come true, like a Cubone type of giant monstrosity that they're going to have to take on. It'll probably be bigger than Kong and Godzilla, just like Ghidorah was bigger than Godzilla as well. And are you going to predict any post-credit scene, just like you did in King of the Monsters, where you heard the Godzilla roar and you got it perfectly right? Or is this going to be the finale?
It's going to be the finale. There's not going to be the post-credits. That's what I'm saying.
All right, mark it down. Or future you. Let's see if she was right or wrong.